Welcome back to the shop. This week we are finally going to be able to build a rolling lumber cart. So we obviously a few weeks ago we did the shop floor here in the barn. If you missed it, I'll put a link up above. But essentially prior to that we were working with a gravel floor, so we weren't able to have any lumber storage that was mobile. So I'm excited to be finally building this one. I have stacks of wood just all over, like I'm sure everybody does. So I'm excited to get that organized. So I don't have any plans or anything like that. I've seen a few videos and pictures on forums on the internet. I'm going to kind of pick a few things from some various versions I've seen and build my own to my liking. So let's hope this works out without a plan or anything like that, but let's get to it. We're going to start by building the base of our cart. For my cart, I'm going to be going with a 5x3 footprint, so first thing I need to do is head over to the miter saw and get our 2x4s cut down to size. Once we have all of our pieces cut, we drill pocket holes into each end of all of our center pieces that we will use to secure everything together. Now we use pocket hole screws to attach everything together, making sure that our frame stays square the entire time. After grabbing some final measurements of our base, we can grab a scrap sheet of plywood and cut our top piece. Assuming our base is square, this should be 5x3. Once we're happy with the fit, secure the top using some screws. If you want to get fancy, you can countersink these, but it's going to be covered in a bunch of scrap wood, so I chose not to for mine. With our base complete, we now need to build the upright supports that we're going to lean our sheet goods against. These are going to look like the letter A, and we're going to need 3 of them in total. This will make a lot more sense here in just a minute. In order for us to lean sheet goods up against these need to be at a slight angle so the sheets don't fall over. To accomplish this, I'm going to be cutting these at a 5-degree angle. I won't be going into the exact measurements on mine, as yours are going to be slightly different, but just ensure that the 3 supports you make are identical. To secure these all together, I went with a screw at each connection and then followed this up with some framing nails. I didn't plan this project out too well, so I didn't have long enough screws on hand. Last thing we need to do to all the supports is drill pocket holes on the outside of each. That way we can use these to secure each support to the base. I should have done this prior to assembly, but I just forgot, so make sure you don't forget. With the supports done, we can now set those aside and pivot back to our base. As I mentioned, this is going to be a rolling lumber cart, so I picked up these full swivel casters from Harbor Freight. We're going to be on the safe side here and add 6 casters in total. To attach the casters, I started by pre-drilling all of our holes, and then finally got around to using my new M12 ratchet to drive in all of these lag screws. Once all of our casters are installed, we can flip our base back over and begin attaching our supports using the pocket holes that we drilled earlier. You'll see I measure 10 inches from the side and install the 2 end supports first. Then I grab a level and butt the middle support up to the level. This will ensure that all of our supports are perfectly in line. It's very important that they are all lined up, that way our sheet goods don't end up getting bowed over time. With our cart moved onto the ground, I add in some support 2x4s to lock the supports together. We can now start adding the storage dividers for our smaller scrap pieces. To do this, we are essentially framing in a big box along one side that will separate into 4 different sections. After building the long side of our box, we can now bring that back to our cart and secure this into place. With the sidewall secured, I then cut a few blocks that will tie the outside wall to the cart supports and make the whole thing really strong. Once that's all complete, I grab the remainder of the sheet of plywood that we used earlier and cut it to fit the front of the cart. This will ensure that no scrap pieces fall out and overall just makes the cart look a bit cleaner. The last step to finish off this side is to install some 2x4s that are going to separate this big box into some smaller sections. You'll see later on in the video, but each cubby is going to hold different thickness scraps that's going to keep everything super organized. Moving on to the other side of the cart, I install a piece of wood about an inch thicker than the base that's going to act as a stop and prevent any sheets of plywood from falling off of the edge of the cart. The very last thing to finish off this cart is to cut some scrap plywood that will fit inside our supports and give us some shelving for some longer skinny scrap wood. All right, so a quick update. Obviously in that time lapse, you guys saw me load all of the scrap piles we have, as well as some 3/4 inch sheets of Baltic birch plywood. So those obviously will go on this side of the cart. This is the side for our sheets. As you can see, I got a little scrap piece. I am filming this a little bit later, so I already broke down those bigger sheets. But obviously sheet goods go on this side. I could fit about 6 to 7 sheets on here. And again, I'm only using this for like the really nice plywood. Or other like thin strips we're just gonna leave stacked up against the wall over there. So this is just for the good stuff to keep it off of the floor. On these shelves, we got some of our longer scraps. So, you know, whether it's 2x4s, we got some poplar for some cabinets, some white oak, some more scrap plywood, 1/4 inch MDF, long pieces, some more 2x4s down below. Moving over to this side, so we have those 4 bins as we built. And this side we have 3/4 inch plywood. Over here we have a 1/4 inch MDF bin, a 1/2 inch plywood bin, and then we have another bin over here that obviously we haven't filled up yet, but we definitely will be. I did see, or I don't know if you saw when I was building this, but I added a 2x4 here, obviously to tie this together, but also to screw our plywood to, and that gives me a big slot here to fit some really wide, shorter pieces of plywood. So pieces such as this that aren't necessarily going to fit in our bins, and we don't want to take up room over on our sheet side. And then obviously some more MDF here as well. Up top, just obviously got some slabs, some walnut over here, some white oak down here. But yeah, that is going to wrap up the lumber cart. So that is going to do it for this week's video. Make sure you guys like this video if you enjoyed it. Make sure you're subscribed. We have some big projects coming. Thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it, and we'll see you next week.